Hey guys, it's Christopher Tom here. Welcome to Storytime with Chris, the segment where Papa Tom tells you a story and you sit on the rug crisscross applesauce. For this installment, I'm going to go back about a year ago and tell you the story about how I first discovered that I had a brain tumor at all. It happened a year ago, and let me tell you, it's pretty crazy to think about now because at the time, nothing was certain. That was like a major turning point in my life, discovering that I had a cancerous brain tumor. Although I already made a video about my brain cancer about a month after it happened, that was more of a summary kind of video and it was more vague. It's such a big topic that it's hard to really get all of it out in a short video. But for this particular video, I want to focus on the discovery of the brain tumor, and I feel like this is really something that could use some revisiting. Hopefully you find it informative. Now let's go back to the very beginning of this thing. Let's talk about the symptoms. This happened at my junior year, and at some point I started to get these headaches on a somewhat regular basis. Now they were relatively minor headaches and they'd only last like about an hour, so I didn't really pay much mind to it. I just thought, oh, it's just a mild headache, it'll just go away. I didn't really see it as something to be scared of. I saw it more as something that's just annoying. But one thing about those headaches that I do remember that are different from like, say, a headache that I might get these days, is I noticed that whenever I would like move my head up or down, my head would start to hurt. So that's how things were for a while. It didn't really interfere with anything in my life, so I never really thought twice about it. I just figured, oh, I got these annoying headaches to deal with sometimes. Because I figured that they'd go away, and they did go away. But they would always just come back the next day. So one day my mom saw me doing this with my head, and she asked me about it. Looking back, it definitely would have been nice if I spoke up earlier, but the past is the past, so I don't really want to beat myself up too much about it. I thought maybe I was just being a little sissy boy about it. Don't think like that. If something's wrong, don't just ignore it. Eventually there came a time where I started to have more and more headaches in school. They started to get progressively worse, so we scheduled an appointment with a neurologist. That stuff takes forever, so we couldn't see him until a month and a half after we booked the appointment. So in the meantime, we decided to go see the pediatrician. The pediatrician didn't think it was a tumor because the headaches went away. He said that if some neurological problem accompanied my headaches, like for example being off balance or my walk being different, then that would be a sign of a tumor. But at the time, I wasn't having any balance issues yet, and I also wasn't having any other neurological problems. So that's why he wasn't able to detect it. A week or two passed, and eventually it was time to meet with a neurologist. He examined me for about an hour, and one thing he made me do was try to walk in a straight line. I wasn't able to do that. So he said, "You are freaking me out. That was not a neurological walk. Either you need to go to the ER immediately, or this is drama, and you need to cut it out." Okay, first of all, I'm glad he had that much faith in my acting skills. That really meant a lot to me. But all of that was actually real. But that didn't stop me from thinking, what if he's right, and it is all in my head? No pun intended. He left the room to get something, so I decided to try to walk in a straight line again with one foot after the other, because maybe it was all in my head. I was thinking that maybe once he's gone, then I can try to do it, you know, maybe my mind's playing some advanced tricks on me. And that's when I realized I really couldn't do it. I was confused about why I couldn't do this thing that everybody else could. My mom asked him to order an MRI, and at first he kind of like disregarded the question. So we had to ask more than once, and eventually he did order the MRI. He thought it was a muscle problem, so he did end up misdiagnosing me and prescribing a bunch of muscle relaxants. I don't hold any grudge against the guy for it. I'm sure he was trying his best. But everybody watching this, keep in mind that this is exactly why it's very important to advocate for your health. And I can kind of see why he found it so hard to believe, because it's very rare for somebody my age to get brain cancer. For the type of cancer that I got, which was a grade 4 medulloblastoma, the typical age range that was listed was 5 to 16. And I was 17 when they discovered it. So in the following days, I went back to school, and I started feeling a lot worse. I remember there was a week where we were doing standardized testing, and we were all getting our laptops, and I remember I was moving from one seat to another with my laptop, and I just like ran into the other seat, and everyone was like staring. And I know at least one person was like, "Hey dude, you look kinda drunk." Pretty soon, there was a day when I woke up and I just felt really sick. I was starting to feel really nauseous, and when I started to get out of bed, that's when I noticed that I was out of balance. So I started to throw up, and we went to the hospital and got a CT scan and an MRI. The doctor came back, and he said that he wanted to talk to my parents in another room. That is when he told them that I had a brain tumor. My dad was the one who broke the news to me. He came in and said, "I'm sorry buddy, but you have a brain tumor." Looking back, I didn't really have much of a reaction, and I think it's because I didn't really know what I was in for. Keep in mind that at this point, none of us knew that it was cancerous, so I just thought it was a tumor. When I heard the news, my mind just drew a total blank. Eventually things clicked, and I realized just how scary the whole thing was. Part of what was so crazy about it was the thought that I was just going to school for months with these headaches, and I had no idea that it was actually a tumor. I was just treating it like everything's normal. That was over a year ago, and right now, I'm doing a lot better, thankfully. I'm honestly thankful to God when I think about this, because when the tumor was caught, it was really almost too late. I really have to emphasize just how important it was that I made it, even with how late we discovered the tumor. At this point, we were told we only had 2 choices of hospitals, one in town and one out of town. So we chose the in-town one, and I was transported by ambulance to the hospital. We got to the hospital and they had a room ready for me and everything. They did some more CTs and MRIs, and then the doctor of oncology came to talk to my parents. So my dad asked why she was there, and she said, "Oh, sorry, I guess they didn't tell you. The tumor was most likely cancerous. It was bad enough that I had a tumor, but it was also cancerous. And we wouldn't know how aggressive the cancerous tumor was until they could remove it and biopsy it. So at this point, they were able to shrink the area around the tumor with a steroid, and that bought us about 5 days so that they could assemble a proper neurosurgery team. So they did some high definition MRIs, and using GPS, they were able to go in between the 2 spheres of my brain and vacuum out the tumor. Once it was biopsied, we found out that it was a grade 4 medulloblastoma. As for everything that's happened after that, I've also made videos discussing those experiences as well. But I made this video to specifically discuss the discovery of the tumor, because that's when everything changed. The doctors decided that for treatment, I had to go through 30 days of radiation and 55 weeks of chemotherapy. This is the scar from the surgery 1 year later. Because of where the tumor was, I lost my balance, and I haven't really been able to regain it since. However, doctors say that if I am able to rebuild some muscle, then that's the first step to regaining my balance, and that it is doable. It's just hard. Until then, I use a walker to get around. I guess if there's a lesson to be learned here, it's this. If you have severe headaches that won't go away, you just gotta get that checked out. And if you have a strong gut feeling about something like this, then you have to listen and be mindful about it. So if I have any advice to the people watching this video, I'd say that it's very important to be proactive about your health. That's about it for this video. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.